Welcome back to U.S. Farmer Report. Mark Schultz, Jim McCormick joining us for Market Roundtables this weekend. And Mark, let's talk about this corn market, lower monthly close. And what, are we just trying to price in this big yield?
Yeah, I would say that is the story, is how big is the crop going to get to be? Obviously, you get an August 12th report. USDA is going to do it all by satellite imagery. They're going to do it by crop ratings and their formula. So no boots on the ground. But when you look at it from that standpoint, obviously what they're going to see is an awfully good-looking corn crop. So my guess is you're going to go on up. The question gets to be, do they bump it immediately up to 184, 185, something like that? I would say it's probably what we're trying to trade into the market at the present time. That appears to be where most of the privates are going into that category. So, they're not going to see anything terrible, that's for sure. And when you look at that, they've had plenty of moisture across almost the entire corn belt this year.
But Jim, what about some of the pollination and disease issues that we've heard in corn? They failed to move the market. When will they?
I think if there is a real issue out there, Michelle, we're really not going to know until the fall harvest and until we actually get into the field. So the market right now, I think, is kind of downplaying it. It's very hard for them to quantify it right now. I do think the other issue we're going to be watching as an industry is the disease pressure. It is immense due to this wet weather we've seen across the Midwest. So we've seen a lot of producers put fungicide on. They need to put a second round of it on. That's getting very, very expensive for a crop that is essentially in the red. I think the market's waiting for it. And like Mark had said, I think the real question is how big's big. I believe it's, if it comes in at a 185 crop, like the private guys are saying, that's a 16 billion bushel crop. You got to remember, Michelle, roughly 5% of this crop is sold, we estimate, which means you got about 15 billion bushels of unpriced corn. And that is going to probably be a drag on the market as we get into harvest.
Yeah. So, Mark, that puts us, back above a 2 billion bushel ending stocks figure on corn. Where do corn prices need to be, or how low do they have to go to price that in?
Well, I think if you look at the market and go back another years of where it's at and what's happening, I would say based on what we're doing fine on our export sales. There's nothing, I can't complain about that. It's just the fact that there's just an overproduction elsewhere. If you look at the Southern Hemisphere, all three countries, Australia, Brazil, Argentina, all are producing near record crop production this year. And it looks like they're going to have more acres again to go in to start out this coming year, which soybean planting in Brazil starts in about 30 more days. So, the clock continues to tick. So the crop has to get moved out the door. So I still think there's going to be some issues here. How big we get on the crop remains to be seen.
So do we have to, Jim, take out last year's lows, you think, in the corn market to satisfy where yield is or not?
Well, if you look at the head and shoulder projection of the chart, it projects to roughly 401, 150% extension of it projects to right there about last year's lows, right around 184. But if this crop would push, Michelle, up to 185 plus, some people say higher than that, that would push your area out potentially over 2 billion bushels. And what that does is put your stocks use closer to 14, 15%. Historically, that could argue corn as low as 350. So I think that would be your extreme low. But to get there, you're going to have to push this national yield over 185. And we'll see what happens when we get a harvest, if that actually is the case.
And Mark, we've had good demand in the corn market. We've had some trade deals that have come to fruition or trade frameworks, but the market doesn't seem to care. The funds seem to really not have a reason to buy here.
Well, the funds are in control, and you're right. Even though we've got the business, we're not seeing the market move to the upside, and continues to go to the downside. So we're just plagued with an oversupply of the market, and right now we're at a time of the year where you typically go down. I'd also say probably got some of this old crop corn still sitting in the farmers' hands that was off July basis, and because when the July board went off, or corn went off the board, they rolled it over into September. And when it would go down, and typically, and this is what we did last year, you put the low in right around August 28th, when the September corn had to be priced out on the delayed pricing. And it looks like that's maybe what we're turning into this year as well.
No doubt. Well, we have not had a good month for the soybean market either, especially the last couple of weeks. We're going to talk about that after the break.